Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we have the pleasure of watching Barrow playing in the T110E3, and by the end of today's video you're going to see exactly why this vehicle is possibly the ultimate frontal fighter inside World of Tanks. So, the T110E3, despite it being nerfed relatively recently, it's still an absolute banger. It's still one of the most competitive tank destroyers that you can play, because it has fantastic frontal armor and a real big gun. And sometimes in World of Tanks, that is all that you need. Despite Wargaming nerfing the rate of fire of this vehicle by a second, they made the aim time 0.2 seconds worse, they nerfed the hit points by 100, and also the view range by 20 meters, which definitely impacts the T110E3's capabilities of being able to spot at decent distances. As long as you're using a premium consumable with good crew skills and you've got the correct field mod to improve the view range, it's still not too bad. And do all of those kind of fancy little stats matter when you can just deliver 750 damage claps to your opponents? And also, unless your opponents are below you shooting up into this vehicle, you've pretty much got about 230 millimeters of effective armor if your opponents are using armor-piercing rounds against you. And that's just absolutely brutal, especially when you're fighting against tier 8 and tier 9 tanks that don't have the best of pens. Then you can just kind of like angle the T110E3 a bit like this and just pray that they miss one of the weaker parts of your lower plate. And the T110E3 lower plate is so troll. Especially if you get into a situation, the T110E3, where you can manage to get close enough so they have to aim down at your lower plate, which is not an advantage because it improves the angling. So the T110E3, in this replay, you're going to see it just in its dream position, you know, holding, hopefully not against too many artillery shells, although that GWE-100 is going to make it their living mission to be able to deal with Barrow here. But unfortunately, without anything to be able to improve the accuracy of this tank, it's not great at long range. 0.36, it's not great, it's not bad. It's interesting to see Barrow's equipment choice. I love the Bond Turbo, fantastic on this vehicle. Bond Rammer, a great choice as well to improve the reload on this tank. However, that Bounty Protection technology, or the Bond Protection technology, that is an interesting pick. Now, I love the way that it's going to be able to improve the repair speed of the T110E3. The last thing that you want to do is to have your tracks locked down. It's also going to make it so that if the T110E3 is ammo-racked or loses its engine, that it's not so big of a penalty, and it's going to, I believe, prevent a fire and protect the ammo rack, at least for the first time. However, I would still personally thoroughly recommend that individuals consider the durability device on the T110E3, because if you stack that along with the second field mod, you can get ridiculous track health, which means that your opponents are going to have to shoot your tracks multiple times to be able to take them off, and then you just use the repair kit, and then they have to shoot your tracks multiple times anyway. And the durability device, while it isn't going to help repairing things like your engine or your gun or your viewports quickly on this vehicle, it is still going to help repairing the tracks on this vehicle specifically by 30%, which isn't nearly as much as the protection technology, but still decent. And that means that when your opponents try to flank you like this, they can't lock down those tracks. But great support here by the artillery, hitting the Char Future 4, meaning that they're a guaranteed one-shot for Barrow. And with a good kill there on the Char Future 4, they do exactly what they need to do, which is getting their opponents in front of them once again. And I love this play as well. Barrow's not going to just fall back and then let them chase him down an alleyway, which really isn't going to work. Instead, they're going to hold the line and deal with what's in front of them. And this is what you have to do in tanks like the T110E3. It's what you have to do in tanks like the Badger. You just have to go after your opponents in this situation. And a nice adjustment there to go through the side of an over-angled hull means that the Tiger Mouse is no more. And just like that, the two one-shots dealt with after dealing with the Char Future 4, and now Barrow can get their just rewards with farming up an M103. And this is just T110E3 City right now, just holding the pass of this mountain pass map. The melted glaciers rolling off, the mountains above, but we have an absolute mountain of a tank right in front of the enemies right now, harnessed by Barrow to be able to just create an absolute graveyard in this alleyway here, having dealt with those 4 vehicles, not single-handed with the artillery support and obviously with the FE405 and the ST1, but as you can see, the game is starting to become quite bleak And yeah, Barrow might find themselves single-handedly have to dealing with a large number of vehicles on the enemy team. What's always so amazing in World of Tanks is when you think you've had a great game, right? You know, 6,000 damage, 1,300 spotting, and then you kind of look up and you go, oh, how is my team still down by 6,000 hit points? Why are we outnumbered 2-1 in this kind of a scenario? Make that now in a 3-1 kind of situation. But Barrow is optimistic. Barrow presses his F8 key, I believe by default, saying they're ready to fire and calling in for help from the artillery here. I wonder if this artillery is going to be able to stay stealth in this situation. The artillery says they're pre-aimed for the corner, I guess waiting for somebody to be able to make their way around. And Barrow is pre-aimed as well. One of the great... Whoa, did you see that EBR being pushed there? That must mean they're on their way. One of the great things about the T110E3 as well, a lot of people don't realize, it's so much better than the E4 because of the ground, the gun depression. You have 8 degrees on this tank. But Barrow finishing off the Progetto now means they're in a 2 versus 5 scenario. They bounce the Object 268, who is also on full hit points before the artillery maybe puts a very important shell in. That 500 damage added on to Barrow's 800 damage. They use a medkit from the pesky artillery, with the artillery falling now meaning that Barrow is in a 1 versus 5 scenario. But those shots from the artillery means that Barrow is able to finish off the 268 in a single shot. And even though now it's 600 hit points versus 3,000 and still 4 vehicles left on the enemy team, Barrow is going to show the enemies that he's not to be taken lightly here. Alright, so the 121B actually does something incredibly smart here, and that is don't drive in front of the T110E3. Wait for the Ho-Ri and the STRV to flank, but what they didn't consider is that Barrow would find a shot right up into the lower plate of the 121B there, finishing them off with a lovely high roll for 805, now meaning that Barrow on 7 kills has changed their 1 versus 5 into a 1 versus 3. That STRV on 800 hit points as well. Will they be a one-shot as well for Barrow's mighty 750 alpha damage? We're just going to find out. Barrow takes a shot, 721, now meaning that all of the enemy vehicles are going to be a one-shot for Barrow. But Barrow is now a one-shot for the STRV if they get a good roll, and definitely easy meat for the Ho-Ri 3 here. So Barrow is actually holding on to regular rounds now. That's not going to be able to go through the structure of the T110E3. They're looking for the STRV. They need to find a shot into the lower plate of this Ho-Ri here as they're not firing gold to be able to go through that hole. Oh, disaster. They missed the shell. Oh, it was nice knowing you, Barrow. It was nice knowing you. Oh wait, the Ho-Ri 3 misses. Barrow angles his tank, dodges the artillery, gets forwards, fails to ram kill the STRV-103B, but manages to be able to put one more shell into them. And now with a Radley Walters medal and nearly 10,000 damage to their name, the Ho-Ri 3 misses the weak point on top, which allows Barrow to be able to deal with yet another tank, extending this just ridiculous graveyard on the Mountain Pass map. Look at what Barrow has managed to do, boys and girls. There's like 2 separate graveyards here. There's one over towards the west. There's one over towards the south. Barrow has just had a tremendous impact in this game, showing you exactly what the T110E3 is good for. And that is, try not to get shot in the side, try not to get shot in the back, and just keep that thick frontal American beauty just singing at whatever is going to be in front of it. Barrow's team is cheering them on right now, saying, wow, GG, guys. Guy, yeah, like, okay, Guy. I guess, wow, you know, that's the real compliment there. Wow, GG, guys. Guy, pretty much, as Barrow, singular here, with 9 kills to their name and 11,000 combined, is now in a 1 versus 1 against an artillery. But unfortunately, with the STRV-1030 putting that 360 damage into Barrow, they've only got 77 hit points, meaning that they are incredibly vulnerable. And Barrow only has 2 AP shells and 3 HE shells left in their vehicle as well. Luckily, the HE shells have got 90mm of pen, so that should still allow him to be able to go after the GW100 if they get really, really, really unlucky and miss a couple of shells, although they pretty much can pen the GW100 everywhere. Okay, so in this kind of a situation, it's really tricky to decide what to do, because the artillery could sneak in towards your cap, but you've only got less than 5 minutes left on the game, so do you try and camp them? If the artillery sits in their base and you don't try to camp them, then you're going to be in a really awkward situation like that. Do you protect the base? Do you go on? The play has to be able to go on. But oh my word! Barrow manages to find the GW100 right where they want them, and the drama is ended right there, with Barrow slamming in 10,000 damage, and also picking up 10 kills, getting a Pools medal and a Kolobanovs in this situation. What an absolute monster game of World of Tanks. Barrow just did everything right. Great focus fire, great aggression, with a dusting of luck, which I think a lot of us need to be able to pick up 10 kills and win a 1 versus 5 in a tier 10 tank, especially one like this, which is definitely at the mercy if it's outnumbered and its opponents are flanking. But Barrow just kept calm, cool, and collected, and crushed an absolute monster round to celebrate the end of the year. So a monster ace tanker here for Barrow for 1,742 base experience. Absolute insanity for a tier 10 tank. High caliber for that 10,000 damage. A Pools medal for those 10 kills. Kolobanovs medal, the one that everybody wants for standing alone against 5 opponents. A Spartans medal for ricocheting with less than 10% hit points. Cool-headed for ricocheting 10 shells in a row. That would be impressive against an autocannon, but ridiculous considering the high tier tanks that Barrow was having to fight here. They get a steel wall in conjunction for that, with 7,300 damage blocked, enough to destroy this vehicle nearly 4 times over. And Barrow even managed to get a tank sniper medal, I guess, for dealing a good amount of damage at the start of that battle at long range. So Barrow, congratulations to you on what is one of the most epic games I've ever seen in a T1 10E3, and this absolute crushing victory that was thoroughly well deserved. And thank you so much for uploading your epic game onto the QuickyBaby.what-record website for the community to enjoy. I know I thoroughly did, which is why I wanted to feature it on YouTube today. And I really hope all of you out there enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the T1 10E3. Is this just another one of those tanks that no matter what Wargaming tried to do to nerf it, it just stays good in World of Tanks? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.